You know, Margaret, I started my career just like you. I got my job, which was that I was actually having to print. There was this huge printing machine, and I had to print all the contracts. And what you were saying about starting at and learning everything about an organization, that is a complete fact. Because people are always in their little boxes, and they don't look at the whole organization. And I think you can learn it from the bottom. And it's just as valid, and I like the way you went about it. My goodness, what a fascinating presentation. I want to take questions.
My question is one, how do you ensure that the men and women who do research for you on the ground are transparent in the results that they convey to your office? Thank you.
Let me talk about the poll we released yesterday. It was a sample of 6,000 respondents. Initially when we planned, by the time we were writing the report, the sample had 5,865, meaning that there are some questionnaires that were trashed for whatever reason. Now let me tell you the quality control processes we put in place. From the briefing to the training that is standard, we brief, train, and ensure we have the right people. Now when we go to the field, there's usually what you call supervisor accompaniment. The supervisor accompanies the researchers to see how they're doing the research and how they're recording. That's about 15 to 20%. Then you have what you call back checks. When we go to a household to interview somebody, the researcher is supposed to draw a map behind the questionnaire, and the map should clearly indicate how to get to Mr. John's house or Mr. David's house. So when the questionnaires come to the office, we give the questionnaires to a different team of people, and they go back to the homes to confirm whether those people are interviewed and whether the responses fitted or on the questionnaire are actually accurate. Now the final check is when the questionnaires are at the office. Nowadays we have at least 75% of the Kenyan population with cell phone numbers. Now on the questionnaire we have cell phones. So we have callers. On our call center we have callers calling to ask, were you interviewed? Who interviewed you? How long was the interview? How old are you? You know, some questions on the questionnaire. Then we go to the main question. Who did you say you'd vote for? And so on. Now that is collaborated. If we find that the respondent says A and the questionnaire has B, that questionnaire is actually discarded. Then when we're analyzing the data, like every interviewer has an ID number. Do you know it's possible to, if an interviewer is cheating, if they have, it's very hard for you to diversify your cheating. So it's actually easy for you to run an interviewer ID and run all their questionnaires. And you can tell what time an interview started, what time it ended, how they've been moving, and the kind of responses they are making. Then we then run checks on the data. And if there is too much correlation on one interviewer's responses, then all their questionnaires are pulled aside and they have to be checked. Those are all the quality checks we do. And we normally have a system in the office that says, if we are not comfortable with the data, we do not release. And if you're not comfortable with some questionnaires, you're better off removing them from the sample. Now, please remember that if we get the prediction of this election wrongly, the whole of Kenya will be talking about us for the next 5 years. That you guys said A and B happened. So we are taking the issue of quality control very seriously. It's actually a reputation risk. Sometimes I wonder, must we do polling? But we can't stop. But if you're going to do it, you better do it in such a way that the results are credible. So that's what you do to check the quality.
I've always wondered, what is the influence in terms of, do Kenyans eat, sleep, drink politics? Is that a making of the media, or is that really who we are?
I find that the Kenyans are very much entrenched into political discussion. But it's not because it's our culture, but it's because of the environment that the government or the president has created. I mean, you know where we came from, where we had Moi, you could not even say anything nasty about the government. Then you've gotten a president who's actually been very, can I say, easy and flexible. In Uganda, we dare not do opinion polls. And I think the president has been on this MindSpeak forum before. For those who attended, you know what kind of person he is. We don't do opinion polls because it was becoming a problem, especially as a company and for our researchers. We could not do opinion polls, and the pressure was actually coming from the government. In a country like Ghana, we do, but Ghana has gone through the worst in terms of politics, so they're very easy about political opinion polling. So I think Kenya is going through a phase that is totally unique. And because of the kind of democracy and space to talk about politics, I think where Kenyans are more apolitical than other countries.
Do you think our current crop of politicians actually have the maturity to handle these polls? Because my impression is that every time a poll goes one way or the other, you get the loser screaming and shouting it's all lies, but it sounds to me as though that's total immaturity on their part. And I guess one could also argue that Romney had the same problem. So, you know.
Okay, I would say maybe 15% of them are. So we are still very, very far. And one politician once told me, the worst thing is that I'm in my car, I'm a VIP, and I'm driving a car with AC. And then on the news, there's a reporter saying, according to the latest opinion polls, so-and-so has 1%, and I'm sitting next to my children. It is your report form being broadcast on media. That for him was the worst thing that we can ever do. And he said, if only you can alert me that you're releasing tomorrow, and then I can ensure I'm in a place where the news will not go out. Then he starts seeing maybe the crowds of people whispering to each other. Then somebody comes and whispers to him and says, Ipsos has said that you have 1%. If only you can warn me in advance so that I'm able to handle it. And how does he handle it? He bashes the opinion polls. So I think they're not mature enough.
How do you achieve work-life balance in your work, if there's anything like that? And if you do, what do you do for fun?
Yeah.
That is a more difficult question than the other questions I'm being asked about opinion polls. Because sometimes when you talk about work, you're very comfortable. When you talk about yourself, it's a bit, I'm opening myself up to you, which is interesting. And then I'm sure somebody's going to tweet and say A, B, and C. However, what do I do? Okay, work life, honestly, when I started this job, I didn't have a work-life balance. In fact, I used to work and work and work and work. And at some point, I realized that I'm not a superwoman, and there's some things I will do, and there's some things I may never do. I'll do them 3 days later, and too bad. On average, I get over 200 emails in a day. And I tell my colleagues, if your email is urgent, if something is urgent, don't send me an email. Call me, text me, chase me, you get an answer. But if I don't respond to emails, if I don't respond to all my 200 emails today, I say, too bad, I'll move the next to the next day. So at some point, I've gotten to a point where I'm not hard on myself. So what do? I try to exercise. Near our office, there's a track, Jaffrey's, where we walk in the evening, do some exercise. I watch plays when I have time at the French Cultural Center. I read books. I love reading books. The book that I read and I loved is called The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yes.
Very good. They even had a theory that basically it's about outliers, people who deviate from the norm. Meaning that if you look at your class or people you grew up with, you've deviated from the norm because you're doing differently. So I was interested in reading. And imagine they said this. People who are born in March are actually outliers. I was born in March. Anyway, there are many other reasons for being an outlier, which means that you have to work hard. They even had a story of the Beatles, how the Beatles moved from being average to being an outlier. They have a story on Bill Gates, how did he become an outlier. So I like reading those kind of books that are intriguing. And I spend a lot of time with my family, immediate, because I prefer to hang out with people that are not in my line of business, because if I hang out with people in my line of business, we'll be talking about work on Saturday, on Sunday. So I've seen myself hanging out with people I was in campus, in high school, and when we meet to talk about different things apart from work, that's how I unwind.
I just want to know about your life. Do you have a family? Are you married? And, the reason I want...
Easy.
Yeah. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, the reason I asked this is because you are an MD, and I want you to tell us whether does family influence your performance at work. For example, I'm married, I have 2 kids, And yeah. So there's a conception, especially amongst young women, that when you're married, your husband interferes with your performance. Tell us, I mean, do you think that that is the situation? And why is it that young women, young successful women, don't want to get married and stuff like that? Can you just tell us? Thank you.
You've asked a question that maybe many people wanted to ask and did not dare to ask. Am I married? No. Am I planning to get married? Yes. When is it going to happen? My colleagues will start telling everyone about this. It will happen this year. How old am I? I'm 37, turning 38. Why has it taken long? It's not career. The career has not been the thing that has made me not get married early, because I've been managing director for 2 years. So 2 years ago I was 35, wasn't I? So it's not an issue of career. The question is, and maybe this is a good one, and everyone is waiting for my response. I'm a researcher. When I interact with people, which is a weakness, especially a potential spouse, I'm always analyzing and analyzing and analyzing and analyzing. So one day I said, I will stop analyzing, because too much information is not good. And there's a terminology that is called analysis paralysis. So I decided I'm going to stop analyzing. Kama nimbaya, nimbaya. So the way I've taken my life in terms of that aspect, I don't read, articles that say 50% of marriages fail. I cannot read that article, because being a researcher, I'll actually be trying to find out why. So that's how I've managed to move away from being too analytical to getting to a point and saying, you know what, I'm going to do this thing. So yes, it will happen. And when it does, give me your Twitter, whatever, and I'll let you know. And thank you for asking the big question. And assuming that I already have a plan to get married. I already know how I'll manage with my job, the hours I'll be working, how many people will help me. I'm a planner. Assuming that the house girl is not at home, I already have plan B, C, and D. So I've already planned the whole process, because in my role, I plan for eventualities, I plan for disaster, so I already have a plan. So be assured it's going to happen.
It really was a privilege to host you today. Margaret had to change a flight to India to be at this MindSpeak session. So therefore, I'm going to kindly close it here. I want to do an interview with her later. But if you will hang around for a few minutes, I'm sure you've got all these people who want to have a word with you. I would be really grateful. Can we give a round of applause to Margaret?